Mm-hmm.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ryan Ron, and I'm going to be doing my refutation on Ashley Chavez's speech. Her main claim is aquatic attractions are enslaving animals in small tanks for the entirement of society. Animals being put in captivity are severely hurt emotional and physically. Then she goes on to her secondary claims, which are, first one is, not only are animals in harm, but are also some of the workers are put under fatal circumstances. Humans are unique, incredible animals who think and feel in a particular way that other animals cannot. But what some aren't aware of is that some animals have ability to do the same within their natural environment. Humans have isolated these animals from their environment and have put through depression with words that these animals are captive and harm the humans who have done them harm. Her secondary claim is animal containment causes severe depression. Like humans being animals also make relationship with one another. The thought of a child being ripped away from their parents or guardians is a very somber story, but it is the same story for these aquatic animals. Many of them have developed relationship with their containment, and many times are relocated to their that tarnishes their feelings and sets frustration in their sadness, which are Telecom and Orchid, and she goes to repeat the example, tell the story of the two orcas. Her third secondary claim is behind the flashy commercial and fancy attraction that the conditions of the whales are extremely somber, and the environment of these aquatic parks is very welcoming for the public, but not for the animals. It's a whole different story. So, on your main claim overall, you state that the aquatic attractions are enslaving these animals and also putting emotional, physical harm on these animals. But when you start to go through your secondary claims, you only talk about orcas and no other animals. So you're only using a little piece of what is actually going on. You also animals in captivity are. All right. I found a quote that captive breeding provides a means for conserving species that may not survive in the wild, while captive in populations established for many reasons, such as conserving the animals exhibit an interesting species and research. Establishing captive populations for saving species from extinction an important contribution to the conservation. This is from the Smithsonian National Zoological Park. So this is saying that animals that are held captive, like SeaWorld, are putting these animals in captive because they're endangered and they're also threatened of being killed outside in the wild. So they put them in these containment to protect them and also to learn research to learn how to save them in the wild. That was her main claim. So then her secondary claim, she also goes, in one of the sentences, she claims humans are unique, incredible animals who think and feel in a particular way that other animals cannot, period. So that was her whole quote without me even changing it. So she claimed that humans feel in a whole different way than animals. Populations of wild killer whales have been classified as endangered or threatened, demonstrating potential critical nature of the research opportunities this type of controlled research to study and simply not possible in the wild. This was from SeaWorld. So SeaWorld stating that they use these animals to get research from them and use them specifically to protect these animals. You also claim in your first secondary claim that these animals are killing their trainers, but when the trainers sign up for their job, they know the risks that are held into their job. But the other thing, you claim that you kind of infer that these orcas or killer whales get their aggression from being in captive for so long. But I think it's kind of held in their name that orcas are a very dangerous animal. They're a killer whale. That's what they're known as. These animals are known for being an apex predator, and what that means is that they're on top of the food chain, and they don't like to take orders for anyone, and they're known for being very dangerous, and they have a lot of aggression. This is from a quote from Oz Science. The killer whale flips the shark and puts it to sleep, and then stops its breathing and kills it, and then the killer whale goes and rips its tongue out and liver of the shark, because that's all it eats. All the other parts of the shark are dropped to the seabed. So what pretty much it does, it kills the shark, it tortures the shark by making it not able to breathe, then it only eats what it wants, so it doesn't even eat the whole shark. So this animal is known for torturing its prey before it even eats it. Then she goes on to her second secondary claim, and SeaWorld this is from SeaWorld. They recognize that the important bond, because she claimed that the calf is being taken away from their mother. SeaWorld claimed that they know the important bond between the mother and calf on the rare occasion that another killer whale cannot care for the calf. We have successfully hand-raised and reintroduced the calf. Whales are not the only moved to maintain their health and social structure. So what they're claiming is that they only move the young animal because of them not being able to cope with their mother. And the third claim is that behind the flashy commercials she starts to talk about, well, SeaWorld they invested $70 million in 3 years, in the last 3 years, to go directly towards their animals. So she uses Tilikum and Orchid as her example to the whole entire thing. But SeaWorld says that they mainly put their money back into the animals. And she also claims in here that their environment or their captivity is small. But Orca Freak claimed that the current show pool is 36 feet deep, 180 feet long, 90 foot wide, and holds 2.5 million gallons of water. So if you were to ask me, that's a pretty big thing. So what I pretty much end my refutation on that.
All right, well, at the beginning of the speech, I think the delivery is a little bit awkward, and there's just a long recap of what the advocate's arguments were. In essence, you were repeating almost the entire argument that the advocate presented, occasionally with a side comment, but most of the time it just seems to be like a recap of that, and it takes you a long time to get to the part where you are actually responding to claims. When you finally start responding to the claims, I thought you presented a couple of arguments that were interesting. The argument about captive breeding, for instance, and that it being necessary for particular kinds of animals, I think that that's a good argument. However, I think you needed to document that the whales, the killer whales that are talking about, fit into that category earlier. Now, you've got a later argument that says that they do that, but that's, why isn't that connected to the point where you are making that particular point, that we need to do this in order for the animal species to survive? I thought that there was a disconnect between those points, and I wasn't sure why it was being organized the way that you were talking about. There's another place where you get into that whole discussion about, the humans being unique and all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of a whole explanation that the advocate's presenting to create a persuasive point of view, and I think you're spending time on it doesn't really accomplish anything. I thought it was kind of interesting that you had this argument that says in the wild, the killer whales are endangered, and then you present a source on that, and then you make the claim that says that so these things are being used to protect the animals, and it's kind of backwards to the argument that you were presenting before. You want the claim to come first, then give us the source citation, and then give us the quote or the information there. It's all kind of working backwards on that particular point. The idea about the killer whales being distinctive, for instance, they're apex predators, they hunt in particularly cruel and interesting ways. Your whole point in making that argument is really to counter this notion that these are these loving creatures that love their children and are being depressed in some way, and you want to make a different picture of the animals. I think that's an okay argument to make. I think you're trying to diminish the sympathy that people might have in this particular situation. But like I said, it's kind of occurring late in the argument after you've already repeated the claims that the advocate made on all those particular points. And I think you do it in a kind of an ambiguous way. You're not really making that connection. I'm having to make that connection. Why am I hearing about why the killer whales eat the livers and throw the rest of it away? That's kind of my inference as to why we're doing that, so that you can say, smaller violin for the killer whales in captivity. There's a reason that we need to look at them, but they are in fact dangerous. There's another argument here about the danger to the employees working there, and maybe the employees should know that they're working with dangers. I don't know that did the advocate ever show that the employees were ignorant of the kind of danger that they were involved in. I think there's some legitimate questions to be asked there. You're kind of just all over the subject. I think you've got some good arguments here, but you're not presenting them as effectively as you need to. You need to keep things pretty simple. Remind us of the points that the advocate presented, but keep it simple. They say that the parks are just entertainment. There's no research that's going on. The animals are harmed in some way, and that they sometimes present a danger to the human people. I'm sorry. That's not the right way to say it. They're human handlers, that sort of thing. Well, let's talk about, is it just for entertainment? And you've got this information that says, they spend all this money to make it a good place. They do research on the animals. In the wild, they're learning things to be able to protect them in the wild. I think those are good responses to that. That's pretty efficient to say it that way, but you kind of are driving in long circles to get to that point. That's a simile, by the way. Okay.